that cable run town clear. Heave away and with the wind, boys. For you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. I am your host, Osiris Prime, doing our very first GX show for January 2021. Not our first show, but we had our deep dive year in review for 2020 last week. This week, though, we have what we've been playing for the past, well, I guess a few months, really, a couple of months at least, since we've been off for a little bit. With me tonight, though, before we get into our games we've been playing, we have one Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Considering everything, doing pretty good. Glad to be here with you, gentlemen.
Good to hear. And, of course, Mr. Ageskles, ex-mixer, as his hat has there, streamer, but now streaming on Twitch, I believe, right?
Yes, yeah. I was always streaming on Twitch. I used to just also stream on Mixer,
okay.
But now I don't because Mixer no longer exists. And I won't reveal anything, but I am updating your nameplate.
Oh boy, uh-oh. It'll be fun to see what that is. All right. No Swiss today. He has off, but I believe he'll be back next week. So let's get into our PickZ PlayZ. PickZ PlayZ was, we didn't technically have an assignment per se from the last GX show from last year. It was more of a casual assignment. So we'll just talk about what we've been playing over the holidays and then maybe a little bit of our plans for the coming year of 2021. DB, anything new and exciting that you've been playing over the holidays? Something you went back to maybe?
Oh, over the holidays, I have the Xbox Game Pass rewards. You know, the whole like log in and break 1,000 blocks in Minecraft, and I have been. I was gonna say religiously, but I would say dutifully doing as many quests as possible, which has given me. I've got my $10 gift code, which was great, but it also caused me to try a few games that I wouldn't have necessarily tried before, and so that kind of I got into Monster Trade a little bit, which came out last year. Card battle roguelike run-based game, which was actually pretty fun. Tried a little bit of Rainbow Six Siege, which I also realized that trying it, it's well designed, but I do not have the headspace nor the time to dive all the way into it. And then also what I did end up spending a little bit of time with was Shadow of War, the Lord of the Rings, the sequel one to Shadow of Mordor. I own Shadow of Mordor, have played a little bit of it, and kind of bounced off of it, but actually, you know, the holiday break is usually a time when I dive into a Ubisoft type of Assassin's Creed open world like game, and I know during our superlative show, I theorized that I'd probably be going back to Ghost of Tsushima, but actually Shadow of War kind of filled that gap for a little bit in terms of giving me this open war aspect. It certainly helped that over the holiday break I watched all 3 Hobbit films, which I hadn't the extended editions of. And so I was kind of immersed in that Tolkien-esque mindset. So it was kind of nice to dive in and play a little bit there. And it's actually, you know, it got some knocks when it came out in terms of some of the loot box aspects of it, which have now been stripped from the game. It also has a little more kind of fortress building kind of strategy element with building up an army, which I haven't had a chance to dig too much into, but the general gameplay core loop of that similar kind of cross between Batman Arkham and Assassin's Creed still feels pretty good. And it looks pretty nice in 4K as well. So I've had a chance to kind of dabble. The second one.
No, I mean, did you play the first one?
Played the first one, not very far though. Kind of
No.
just, and part it was, it wasn't the right kind of headspace time. You know, I don't know, had not really spent a lot of time in Tolkien's worlds recently, and so you know, other than Lord of the Rings and that in the 2000s, hadn't really spent a lot of time back in that kind of universe, and so I, the IP a few years ago didn't grab me for some reason. Right now, maybe it's thinking about the 20 years of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, kind of got me back thinking about that as well.
Or is it because Sauron has been wielding his evil eye over the land for the last year?
Well, you know, you could say that. You could. There's been plenty of temptations of rings of power from the realm of man. So that is very true.
Excuse me, making me choke there. All right. As for me, I jumped actually a good bit into Immortals: Phoenix Rising, so that was pretty nice. I talked about that a little bit, I think, last couple of GX shows, and I really like that game. It's really fun. I really like how there's no weapon breaking, much like in Zelda Breath of the Wild. So that's nice. Still has that stamina meter, but I mean, that's manageable. You can kind of upgrade that too as you're playing. So I've been still going through pretty much just like kind of not the first world. I guess it's like the second land that you kind of unlock, and kind of branching off, doing stuff. And you can't go too far, because otherwise you're gonna get beat down if you're not leveled up. So I learned that pretty quick. So which is kind of nice. Because you know, I kind of like that, where you can like build yourself up and you go back to that, you know, that area that was kicking your butt before, and kind of just take out everybody. So that's kind of cool. And the other thing I was kind of playing a little bit off and on was Minecraft. Kind of jump back into that. I think there had been a fairly recent update, maybe October, November, maybe. So it's kind of just jumping through there, kind of seeing what had changed. I really didn't see too much, just because I wasn't exploring as much as I usually would. I was kind of just, for some reason, I found like a couple of villages actually kind of right away. So I was kind of building up. I like to like find a village and kind of just build off of that, and kind of build my own thing when I'm doing that. So that was kind of cool. And other than that, pretty much just like the normal, like Rocket League and Fortnite and Call of Duty and stuff like that. So nothing too major. Mostly Immortals. So that was good. I guess, Cleese, how about you? Anything exciting or different over the holiday break?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right.
I'm a bit confused about where we are with the agenda, so I'll just
sorry.
Leave off of there and let you guys go.
We are off the agenda, and this is a you know, not a new tradition in each taking fashion, but
Okay.
we are simply just you know, Prime is writing his own agenda as he goes.
No, that's good.
You must have been reading this wrong, or I don't know.
No. It's 99% probably because the way I filled it out made it look like there was an extra segment. So I think I will be caught back up in sync when you move on to the next section.
Okay, so let's go on to the next section, which would be if we had played anything new recently, any new games. But none of you guys feel anything else, so I just kind of threw in. I'm going to talk about the Xbox Series X, which I just recently picked up.
So how recently is recently? When did you? How long have you had with it now?
So it's only been it's been less than a week now. It was just this past Saturday that I actually got it. I had it shipped to my my house here, and I think it only took like a couple days actually from when I ordered it online from GameStop. Finally, that I was able to find one, but it came kind of late in the day. So by the time I got I kind of rearranged my desk, and I had to copy stuff off. I actually had to copy stuff off my Xbox Series X before I did that. I had kind of started doing that earlier, or like a couple days before. I didn't get as many games as I thought I did, so that kind of took a while. Then I set the thing up. You know, I had to copy everything over. There was like I think less than a gig update when I turned it on, so that wasn't too bad. It took like 5-10 minutes, so that was fine. So I unfortunately haven't really played anything new yet on it. That's not just like a like an upgrade to the Xbox Series S. So I want to try to. I downloaded some stuff from the Game Pass that came out fairly, within the last few months or so since it actually released. So, but of the few games I did play,
So can I? So I want to catch you real quick. So one, yes, totally my fault with the way that I filled out the agenda. The way it was meant to read is that the entire show is our PickZ PlayZ report out because we're just reporting out on everything we played over the holiday. So that's on me. The second question I had though was because this is the Gamer Xperience show, and so a big part of our experiences this year as we phase this rollout across the 4 co-hosts will be each of our different transitions onto the new consoles, because we're all going to come at it differently. And I'm always amazed when things actually turn out this way in real time. So when I onboarded with the Series S, I didn't do what you did. I just, because I had a gap, because I had gotten rid of my one Scorpio like a month or two before. And so when I transitioned on to the Series S, I didn't copy anything over. Mine was a whole brand new startup. And so that defined part of my experience. So you had your one you moved over from your one Scorpio to the Series X, or did you transfer anything from your 1S to the Series X?
No, just from the Scorpio, just from the 1X, yeah.
And that was from the one Scorpio's internal storage to the Series X's internal storage?
No, I did it actually from an external drive. So I went from the Scorpio to the external drive, and then from the external drive to the 1X, or Series X, excuse me. I really wish they would have named this thing different. I swear.
Was that because there was a physical? Because I mean, you could have. I mean, I guess the way I did it when I went from my original Xbox One to my one Scorpio was I transferred them across my network, and even though they were both wired, that was still almost like an all-day event. So
yeah, I didn't have anywhere to put the Series X yet at that point. So that's why I did the copying, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to hook that one up yet. So yeah, I just copied. I did copy from the S. Well, this was actually not from the Series X, but I copied from the S to the Xbox One X once I did finally have everything set up, because I gave I shouldn't say I gave. I'm letting my son use the Series S. I'm sorry, the Xbox One S. So once I set up the Xbox One X, I kind of transferred it down, and I only did a couple games. So I mean, it was pretty quick. I probably could have done it if I was able to set everything up, but unfortunately, I didn't have that luxury at that point. So
and how long did that take you? So you went from a one Scorpio to, you basically forklifted everything onto external hard drive, and then took your Scorpio away, and then dropped your Series X in, took that external hard drive, and forklifted everything back over to the Series X. So roughly, like, how long did it take to copy on to the Series X?
Yeah, I had most of the games I actually had already that I wanted on the external. There was only like maybe, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 that I had to go through. So that was probably like maybe 2 hours at the most coming down to the external. Now going back up to the Series X actually was pretty quick, maybe like an hour, 45 minutes or so. So that was actually kind of nice that it didn't take too long. But since it was kind of late at night too, that I had started this whole process, it was a little later than I wanted to initially. So
do you know which of your games that you moved over are Series XS compatible, or have received enhancements or upgrades?
Yeah, they actually, as soon as I put them on, so when I copied everything from the external that I wanted to the Series X, which wasn't, I only wanted to put a handful that were actually on that I knew were going to have enhancements. They popped up, an update popped up like as soon as I had put it on there. So it was actually kind of nice. So I was like, because I know for a fact, I think it was Fortnite. The update had just come out like a couple of days before, and then when I popped it in there was another update like almost immediately. So I was like, oh, what's that? And then I remembered they had the 120 frames per second update and all the other doodads that you can do now, which I can't do the 120, but still there's more that came down with that update, and then it came out like pretty much later that night when I was kind of just like looking through things and settings and all that. So it was actually kind of nice.
Yeah, so I don't. So let's see. Okay, so just to make sure I understand. So you did actually copy those things over, because I mean, barring the Series XS updates, you technically didn't have to copy those things over to internal storage. You could have just played them off the external hard drive, but you actually copied them over.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, then it was an upgrade, because I would have assumed you would have left them on the external hard drive, played them off of there. In which case, the pop-up message, it wouldn't have been an update. It would have actually been requesting to install a whole separate version, and then you would have two versions, one on internal storage, one on external. But since you actually copied it over, it sounds like you got the upgrade. So okay, cool.
Yeah, I think you had that problem, right, where there was like two copies.
Yeah.
Two full copies, basically.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the fact that I knew that was a problem, I mean, that was why I was like 59 times as frustrated as I would have normally been. Is if I had been discovering that problem when I was trying to fix it, that would have been one thing. But the fact that I had already been over that lesson learned, and I had taken action to deliberately prevent the fact that I would have two versions running around on the system, and then, despite taking action to prevent that from happening, found out that the stinking thing had copied like two versions, was like really, really frustrating. But in my instance, that was where I had an XS game sitting on the external hard drive to be copied over. I added a storage card, and so I was kind of moving everything around, and I had used the command move. Move should be move should not be copy, because there's also copy.
Right.
So I don't understand why copy and move do the exact same thing, but when I say move, it should take it off of one thing and put it on the other and erase it from the other thing. But in the case of FIFA 21, it didn't. I actually had a copy on the external drive and a copy on internal storage, which again I only realized when I was like 3 menu levels down and saw a text indicate, was like reviewing my storage status, and was like, and like was 3 levels down in the FIFA menu, managing that software load, and it said, installed on 2 different devices.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the initial setup too, which I probably should have mentioned, just like when you turn it on and stuff, you can kind of, I don't know if I'm assuming it was the same as the Series S, where you can like just do through the app, and you kind of just, it does kind of like the first part of it for you, and then you kind of do the rest through the controller and stuff. That was like just normal, so I didn't have any problems with that end.
Yeah, the way it presented to me, and maybe there's a different way to do it, but the way it presented to me, it presented a set of instructions that made it appear like there was no other way to set it up other than to go through an app, which was another point of frustration with me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, the only problem I had was there was something. Oh, I had to put the location services on my phone, which I didn't realize at first, and didn't really tell you that. It kind of like blips it up there real quick, and I didn't see it like the first couple times I was trying to do it, and then after that, I was like, it just connected and it was fine. So that was kind of nice.
So that's a weird thing. I want to say, I mean, it would take me, like, I won't know this for certain until like 2 or 3 years from now when I buy the Xbox Series V or S 2.5 or whatever it is. But like, I want to say, I think that it tells you that you have to turn location services on, but if you monkey around with the thing, I think there's a way to skip that, and you actually don't have to do that. But
okay.
It's a thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other issues. I don't think, like, setup wise, yeah, it was fairly simple, and even like I said, the copying and stuff was fine. I didn't mind it. I mean, I knew I was going to take kind of long, but that was all right. But then as far as just like the games, I played some Call of Duty Cold War. I know, surprising. That looked about the same to me as the Xbox One X, so there's no really difference that I could tell. I've only played it a few times though, so I don't know, maybe I have to get into it and kind of see. I can change the field of view now. I don't know if that was enabled on everything now, or if that was just on the Series X.
Yeah, it's just that should just be on the Series X, Series S version. So it's weird to me. So you're not playing on a 4K TV then, or display?
Yeah, I am.
So yeah, they should. Yeah, I don't know. Well, have you? Okay, so have you played the single player campaign?
No, that I have not played yet.
Okay.
I hadn't played that even on the One X
Okay,
yet.
so depending on how you set it, I will admit, when I play multiplayer, I have a lot of the stuff turned off on multiplayer, so it probably doesn't look too different from the one, yeah, from the One X version. But I will say, when I was playing the single player campaign, I had everything turned on, ray tracing and everything, and it definitely looked way better than
Oh,
than the
okay.
last generation version did. But
Yeah. And I kind of figured it probably wouldn't be that much of a difference and because I always just play multiplayer for the most part. I'll go back and play the story eventually, but and I can always do that comparison too because I still have the One X. So, but yeah, I mean it's still just played smooth. I mean, it was playing smooth on the One X too, so it was fine. Next game was Rocket League. That looked, I guess, a little bit better. Like the colors kind of seemed to kind of be a little bit more brighter, I guess. Everything was pretty much stable. There was no like weird collisions that I can kind of see like when I play on the old Xbox and on the Switch. But the two games that actually did stand out for me were Fortnite, which, like I said, I got the update for that. Excuse me. And like I said, even though I can't do the 120, even it was just like, and that game's kind of, it's pretty colorful as it is, but it just like popped out like even more so, and just everything looks like super clean. The storm, I could actually see it like way off in the distance, like even when I first start out the match, and I can see the whole thing just kind of moving in, and it looks a little bit different than on the One X and on the Switch. So, and obviously on the Switch, sometimes the you can't really see out in the distance. It's like kind of like foggy or kind of like draws in sometimes. But this was like crystal clear. I could just see everything like all around me. So it was really amazing. And then the last game that I played was No Man's Sky, which is kind of one of the reasons I wanted to get the Series X in the first place. And that game looks really nice, like really nice.
Yeah, what's the
there's
draw distance there in terms of space?
there's still a little bit of popping. Even kind of up close, and there's some weird I don't know, it was just like, so the couple of planets I went to, some of them had trees, some of them just had like these large rock outcroppings or just coming out of the ground, and it would, like, I could see everything crystal clear like in Fortnite, but like those one objects would kind of like, as I'm getting close to them, they would like sink into the ground. Sometimes they would just like go all the way down and just disappear. Other times it was kind of just like halfway and then it would stop. So I don't know, that was kind of weird, but otherwise, yeah, look, that was another beautiful looking game. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to, so I want to try to get into somewhere that has like a really heavily like forested and trees or like whatever kind of weird objects that sometimes you see on these planets. So I definitely want to jump into that a lot more. And for both of these games, man, the load times. The load times are really nice, especially in No Man's Sky. Even on the One X, it took quite a long time for it to load in, which I can understand because you pretty much, well, as far as I can think, there's really no load times once you get in there. But that initial load in there was like always like at least like a minute and a half, maybe.
Yeah, that whole
sometimes.
like warp speed traveling through the stars loading.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
going through the galaxy or through the different universe or whatever. Yeah, and that would like took like, it was like 15-20 seconds. It was like super quick. So I was like, wow, that's really nice. So I was really impressed by that.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to test at least like the two of us doing Anthem multiplayer whenever we do Anthem multiplayer again, and kind of just seeing if you and I are loading at like the same time.
Yeah. So it should be nice. And I'm actually on the X. It's just wireless here. So I mean, it'd be interesting to see once we get into like a multiplayer with all of us in there to see how it handles. Excuse me. Other than that, like I said, I unfortunately haven't really got to play too much. I played a little bit more Call of Duty Cold War like a couple days after I did it initially. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it. I downloaded a few games from Game Pass that were, supposed to be XS compatible, or I think they're released on there too. One is Call of the Sea, which looks pretty interesting, so I want to check that one out. And the other one was I think it actually released on the same day the console did, was the Falconeer, I believe that's what it's called. So I want to check those two out. And those are obviously smaller studios, but still, I mean, hopefully it should be pretty good.
And how's the fan noise for you?
I don't even hear anything, to be honest with you. It's like super quiet. And I read about that too, and I was like, I know you could probably hear it, but no, yeah. So far, even with No Man's Sky, I haven't heard it at all. So,
how's the fan noise for you? I guess, please.
Imperceptible. That being said, like I am just not first of all, I'm not a noise like person who flips out over noise in the first place. In the second place, like every computer down here has like 7 fans in it. So if that thing did have noise, if I have even one PC lit off, I don't know that I would notice. But with the Series S, I have mine mounted horizontally, and so it has that big pancake grill on top, and that, again, on the other podcast we've talked a lot about heat dissipation in TDP. It does not bother me, but it's like if you put your hand over it, like it's noticeable. And in fact, the one thing that is kind of interesting is because I just really kind of dislike how you can't really put the Xbox Series in. You can't really turn it off. Like you say you're turning it off. It gives you on the UI that you're turning it off. I think it still differentiates between a standby and a turn off option. I have to look at that. I think it does, but it's never off. Like the thing's warm all the time. It's as far as I can tell, it only ever goes into standby. And I do kind of dislike that in contrast to like the PlayStation 5, which still has a discrete off versus standby mode. I would like to have that control. If I would have turned the thing off, I turn the thing off. Now that being said, when I turn it off, even though it still seems like it does some background stuff, even in the off mode, telling me it's really in standby, I do move my Xbox Series S periodically. And the difference is at least, on the One X, when you put it in standby, of course, if you pull the power cord, then when you hooked it back up, it, nagged you about, yanking the power cord when the thing wasn't properly shut down and needed to repair the hard drive and all that. So you say you put it in off, it appears to not be off, it appears to be in standby, but it doesn't yell at you about yanking the power cord if you move it. So it just leaves it unclear and uncertain on exactly what power state it's in, which again is for a person like me that's a control freak that bothers me on a daily basis, but that is what it is. Have you noticed that with the X Prime? Does it seem like no matter what mode you turn it on, is there always just a little bit of heat coming off of it?
Yeah, I kind of checked on that like every once in a while, and it seems pretty cool to the touch when I'm not using it. So, and I just have it on. Right now I just have it on standby, or was it? I think it's standby, right, where you can still like pull down stuff and updates and all that. So. No, I don't see. It gets warm, I guess, when I'm using it. I've never really seen it get like super hot or anything. So, I mean, that's nice. I've seen some reports saying that it gets super hot, but it's been fine so far. So, any other questions for the Series X?
So, what's next on your list? What are you going to try to push it to see how it feels and see how it looks, see how it runs?
Probably the next major game besides those two I had mentioned before would probably be the Medium when that comes out later this month. Actually, in probably a couple weeks, I believe it is. I think it's the 28th or something like that. So we'll see. That'll be like the big test on it. I might try to see on Game Pass too if there's anything else that I can pull down. But those are the only two that kind of interested me, at least. I was trying to look for, and like I said, I was trying to look for something that was like brand new, more or less, and not something that was just going to get like an update or an upgrade from a previous generation. So we'll see what happens. All right. So Mr. Agascles, let's start with you for our round robin here. Not surprising.
Yeah, I also, well, it is surprising to me, but I have been continuing to pound the bricks in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Most recently played on the Series S, but I've been playing on the PlayStation 5 and the PC as well. I think I've mentioned, at least to you guys, I also, have recently gotten over the notion that playing keyboard and mouse on console is in any way dishonorable. So I have broken out my keyboard and mouse. I actually have gotten hold of a couple of different mice because where I have the console set up when I'm live streaming, there's not as much desktop real estate here as my larger workstations, and so I got some smaller mice actually, so I could do the whole 360-degree turn when you get in close with somebody in a fight without like running out of mouse pad space and having to reposition it. So did you play any of the update, Prime?
From just this past week, or
From like today?
oh, today? No, I have not played today's update. No.
Yeah, so there's a mid-month update that's out. I think it just dropped today. It has 2 at least additional modes in it. So it has drop kick and one other one that I can't remember the name of. I think it starts with an S. But drop kick is kind of like a capture the flag, VIP escort, time bomb. Like it's a mixed match of modes, but basically there's a money in the bank mode. I think is something that I think Fortnite has had in it or something or other. But it's basically there's a suitcase. You have to go and get the suitcase. When one person picks up the suitcase, the only thing that they can use is a pistol. I don't think it's whatever pistol you have armed either. I think it specifically makes you shift to the Colt 1911, and then everybody else has to defend that person. So you as a group have to kind of collectively decide where you're going to set up camp, and how you're going to defend that area. There are some, I think, natural places on the map that you would think you're supposed to go, but it's very interesting. Intuitively, what you want to do is run to the opposite ends of the map where your basically spawn points are. Those are not always necessarily the most defensible positions. So, for instance, on Cartel, that end of the map. That is over on the other side of the warehouse is not the most defensible position. Actually, one of the most defensible positions is the ravine that is in between that area and the back side of the stream, because enemies can only come at you from those 2 directions from either side. Whereas, often when you set up camp on the other ends, there's like 3 or 4 different points of entry. So it feels a lot like playing a game of football to a certain extent. So it's just really super interesting. Again, another mode that, much like a Hardpoint, really lends itself to running around with the LMG, which is kind of one of my favorite things to do. So you rack up tons of kills, but it's super refreshing. It's going to be interesting to see how these seasons go because, when I signed on board this thing, I really didn't consider the notion that like we could potentially get different modes in the play rotation, like every season. And this is a mid-season drop. This is a month after, the season dropped. So it should be fairly interesting. And, that also leaves open the possibility of new maps, etc. So yeah, I had a really good time playing today. I just jumped on and played one map while I was trying to configure it for a live stream later. But I'll mention briefly, while I mention that, so I started playing that last night. The new mode stuff dropped today, but between last night and later on tonight, I've also been testing the Thrustmaster eSwap X Pro in conjunction with my Call of Duty play. So this is a new controller that's along the lines of the Microsoft Elite Controller V2. It's kind of in the same price range, so it's a little more expensive controller. And this thing's unique play or claim to fame is the fact that the analog sticks and the D-pad are modular, and so they can be swapped out and around. You could actually pull this module out and that module out and reconfigure this so that it is set up like a PlayStation controller with the analog sticks directly across from each other. It has concave and concave. It comes with convex and concave buttons. So I just swapped these out last night to see if the concave buttons play a little better. One thing that I really like is the face buttons have a little button clicky sound to them. They're not just mashed potato buttons, kind of like they are on the regular Xbox controllers. This one is also a little larger than the Elite Controller V2, which I kind of like because I like larger controllers. Not as heavy as the Elite V2, which is a thing that kind of bothers me. Has buttons on the bottom. You can adjust the trigger throw distance. And then probably one of the neatest things is it has, along the bottom, it has a map button. And so without connecting it, on Windows 10, it has a software application that you can use to, manage, button swaps and all that, and calibration as much as you want. But also even on console, it has this map button, and on the fly, you can hit that and remap a control to things like these underside buttons, as well as some other functions. Again, it has these. It has the I'm getting my headphones. It has the underside buttons here, which have some curvature, which is kind of nice, but I feel like they're not quite as neat as the full-size paddles on the bottom of the Elite Controller V2. So that's the thing. Yeah.
Those underside buttons they're just like you can't take them off, right? You like paddles.
Yeah.
Like the pedals.
Yeah. You can't take them off, but they are discrete controls. So even so, if you don't map anything to them, they just don't do anything
right
underneath there.
Did you remap? Have you remapped your V2?
I haven't, and that I hate to jump ahead to kind of how I'm settling in on how I feel about this thing, but and I'd be curious to ask you guys as well, and maybe Swiss too. But like, even though I have lots of specialized controllers and I play flight sims, so I have HOTAS and flight control systems. I'm one of those people who 99% of the time, probably because I have more than one controller, I use controllers out of the box. I hardly ever tweak them. I'm one of those people who will have a controller on PC and it'll have a software application, and over years of ownership, I'll never load that software app or never use it. Like, I don't use Razer Synapse to like monkey with like how my so in terms of cost, it's a lot of controller that by industrial design does some things that I like, but it also does a lot of extra things that I don't need. And so the question's going to come down for a lot of people, do you need to spend that extra money? A lot of the modular things that swap out are cosmetic. And I'm like, well, Xbox Design Labs is going to come back online and you're going to be able to get an S controller, in whatever kind of color pattern you want. So that's probably a more cost-effective way to get a cosmetically unique look if that's what you're looking for.
How much was that one? Not the V2, but the other one.
This one was $160. So I think the V2 was $170. So they're right in the same price range.
Okay.
But I will say, if you are looking for something in that price range, it's definitely a thing to look at. I mean, I think it's, for the esports player or the person who's hyper competitive. That's another thing. I'm not hyper competitive. I'm playing a lot of Call of Duty now, but I'm very pleased with what my scores and my ED rating are, but that's a happenstance. Like, if they were just the normal that they normally are, I wouldn't feel bad or be losing ego points at night, as I lay asleep. But if you are that kind of person and you want to have, a bunch of different modules and swap things around and tweak it to your liking, it definitely facilitates that. And then you can make that trade decision, if you want to pay that $10 less than the Elite Controller V2, and have the advantage of having, modules that may come out. There's maybe one other type of analog stick module that you can buy, and one other type of, I want to say D-pad stick that you can, or D-pad that you can buy. I don't know how many more they're going to make, but that's dependent on probably how many people buy it. So it has that aura around it that if there's not a huge amount of uptake, there may not become anything of the modules. And a lot of the modules are just cosmetic, just to change the color. But being able to swap the things around that come with it and and remap buttons may be something that's of high value to people who need that type of customization and tailoring.
Yeah, I've had the Elite version 1 for a long time now, actually, and I've never used those back buttons at all. So maybe one day I will, but kind of like you, like I said, I got a lot of controllers too, so I tend to swap out different ones just so I don't wear one down right away. But yeah, all right. So I have been playing something on the Switch, Human Fall Flat, and I believe about a month or two ago, maybe I had played this on the Xbox, and it was on sale this past couple weeks when I got it, or this past week. I think it was like $7 or $8. So I was like, I'll pick it up, and I was able to use my my Nintendo points that you get, when you buy stuff, and you get the kind of like reward points. So it was basically free for me, and I was just having fun with that again. I was playing through it. I got to go back to the Xbox version though, because I could have sworn some of the controls were a little bit different. Like you can raise your arms. You kind of put your arms out straight, and then you can raise them. And on the Switch, you would figure it would be like the motion control, but you just kind of like press. Well, for me, I press down to look up because I have it inverted. So, and that's what actually raises your arms. So I thought that was kind of weird. So I don't know. I got to go back on the Xbox and see if that's how it was. I thought it was like different. So to raise your arms, you use the shoulder buttons, and I thought it was the triggers to like kind of like look, but it wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe I was hoping it was like that. So I'll have to go back and try to figure out what's going on with that. But yeah, I mean, it plays almost exactly the same as in the Xbox version. So you just like this little blob character that has to figure out these little rooms, just puzzles in the rooms to get through the door or through a trap or whatever you happen to be doing. So originally I had heard about this game for a long time too, even before the Xbox version. And I remember I was watching with my son. He was watching one of his YouTubers or streamers, and just actually playing it because I had never really saw any gameplay, and I just thought, this is pretty cool. So I'm kind of glad it was on the Switch too, so I can pick it up and I want to actually play with my son at some point. So I think it'd be pretty fun. Pretty hilarious to go through those puzzles together. So from puzzles to racing, not racing, to platforming, excuse me. DB, what do you got up for you first?
So I'll wrap these both together in terms of some 3D platforming. Over the break, I played both Crash 4. I'm trying to remember what the subtitle is there. It's About Time, by Toys for Bob, the Skylanders people. And then I also played Sackboy's Adventure, which is developed by Sumo Digital. So Crash 4 comes with a caveat. I've never been a big Crash person, and I don't have any nostalgia for Crash. So that said, it feels like Crash, right? I mean, in some ways, if that is something that you have fond memories of on the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, and not all the Activision Crash, like 3D World remakes of them, it is right in there, You run toward the screen sometimes, you run away from the screen sometimes, you die a whole lot. It's Crash. It looks really good, looks good in 1080p, looks pretty nice in 4K. I'm a couple worlds in, it plays with kind of some good platforming challenges in terms of, it's pretty easy to just make it all the way through. I mean, you can play in kind of classic mode where you have a set number of lives, or you can play in kind of modern mode where you respawn at every checkpoint. The modern mode part is actually, it was pretty funny playing with my son, and he's trying to get all the boxes in a level, continuing to die, and up on the upper right hand corner of the screen, like where it looks like where your life counter is, every time or every couple times when we'd look up there after he died, that number would go up. And so we thought, oh wow, it must be getting extra guys. But no, it was just counting how many times you die in the level. So by the time we got to like 35, it just became a good laugh of trying to get it all. But it is, at the end of the stage, if you've broken all the boxes, if you've only, each level has a life challenge. If you've only died 3 times in the level, you'll get one of the gems. If you found all the wampa fruit, if all the different pieces you can you can finish a level relatively easy, but if you want to go back and have that kind of completist challenge, there are multiple levels, multiple kind of gradations of challenge there that you can provide yourself.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So help me out with the history on this, because maybe, cause I'm trying to ask a question, I want to make sure it's valid. So Crash, the way I remember it, when the original Crash came out, it was a PlayStation exclusive because it was just the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn, I guess, at the time. So okay, so just out of curiosity, why playing it on Xbox One? I mean, I know you said you didn't have any nostalgia for it, but did.
Sure. No, that's a very valid question, right? Crashes, it feels like it should be a PlayStation property. I chose Xbox One in part because, well, not even in part, intentionally because of the One X, that I wanted to see what it looks like in 4K. And playing it on that versus a PlayStation 4 Pro, I feel like I get better HDR on the One X. So that's why, and that's so that is the intentional there. But also that I knew that I also was getting Sackboy, and so it gave me a kind of a pairing that I could, jump back and forth between the two. And Sackboy's Adventure is it is Mario 3D World on PlayStation with some really great kind of Sackboy aesthetics, kind of really fun, kind of crafty hodgepodge, kindergarten art project type of world construction sometimes, but also in that same mode that Crash does, where you can have, getting to the end is one thing, collecting all the orbs is another thing, getting all the hidden spots, is one other challenge there. And so there are multiple different unlocking costumes in true Sackboy and Little Big Planet fashion. You can purchase a coin. You can use coins that you earn, as going through the level to purchase other costumes or clothing or hats or hair and all different, and kind of customize your Sackboy. So I played both single player, but I also played co-op with both my sons. So I played 3 players, which was great because there's some on the big open world in kind of Mario 3D fashion. You kind of run from level to level, stage to stage, and so there are some stages that only pop up if you're playing multiplayer. And so there are certain puzzles within there that you need multiple people. Like in the co-op only one, you had to have somebody throw you up to get to a high spot, or you had to be pulling on 2 different mechanisms in order to open the door to get through. So there was nicely designed. It's way more fun than Crash, and maybe that is because of the aesthetic and kind of the lightheartedness. But it is really well designed. It does a lot with the animation in terms of the giving Sackboys their kind of characterization, and the music that it uses is great. Sometimes it's using some kind of modern pop music, but remixing it in almost like a rhythm stage. And so you're moving through the world to the beat of some of the different songs that it uses, and it doesn't. Right now, it doesn't seem to overplay that in terms of you get maybe 1 or 2 per level, but it is 5 worlds, maybe 6 worlds, and you're kind of moving back and forth in that kind of New Super Mario kind of overworld aspect of it. But a lot of fun. Again, I'm playing it on PS4. It looks really nice on PS4 in 1080p. I totally believe that the textures on a PS5 and 4K are going to really pop and put Yoshi's Crafted World to shame in terms of kind of the quilted art house aesthetic of this nature. So both enjoyable, but in terms of Crash works as a Crash game, Sackboy works as a very accessible platformer to anybody.
But the original Big Planet, actually there was 2 of them, right?
3 of them.
3 of them. Yep. Did they have any kind of like single player aspect?
Yeah, there was a single player story there. The levels created by Media Molecule. I think the one thing that I really like about Sackboy's Adventure is that the physics are not media molecules physics. I always found that Little Big Planet, your jump was maybe a little too floaty. Here, it's a much tighter jump, so your precision is better in a platforming aspect. You do get kind of the Yoshi kind of feet flutter to kind of give yourself a little bit more of a boost or stay in the air a little bit longer, and so that gives you a little bit of it's a little more forgiving in terms of some of the difficult platforming, and it allows you to get some distance. So I think they've played with the physics of it in a good way and made a better platformer out of it.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was like. So in the Little Big Planet was it just like, because it was basically kind of a toy box, right? Not I shouldn't say initially.
Yeah, I mean it had a set number of levels, but then you could create your own levels. You'd unlock different pieces to build your level with, or and so yeah, it was very much a toy box. It got more complicated over the different iterations. The single player kind of pack in levels expanded as well.
Okay, so were the single player a little bit more than just like the toy box? Was it basically just the toy box levels made into a single player story, or was it a little bit more? Did it like expand on it a little bit?
I'm trying to remember. I think I played a little bit of 3. I played 1 and 2 quite a bit. 1 very much seemed like most everything in the world you could have unlocked at some point in time. There were some of those, levels where it felt like you couldn't quite make it. I mean, in terms of, that they were doing good stuff with they were using their developer tools more than just kind of, the dreams aspect of Media Molecule of everything we built, you can build as well type of thing.
Okay. Like just to drop in stuff in there. I was just wondering because I wonder if just leading up to like was it like a really story or was it just kind of like okay here kind of like Mario in Mario Maker where it's like okay here's
yes it's much more like that in that kind of like we've built you some levels, there is a progression, but there's not like a story. In this there is a story. You are going and rescuing and preventing a big bad from taking over the craft world or whatever. So there's a narrative hook in this that doesn't necessarily exist, at least in 1 and 2.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so from cutesy Sackboy to Warships, I guess, please. What have you been playing here on the PC? World of Warships.
Yeah, so, yes, exactly. I've been playing World of Warships. So, we may talk about this a little bit later, but, one of the things I've been focusing on or trying to nail down, and realizing that I'm enamored by are things that have these persistent progression models. And so, between Call of Duty and World of Warships, I've definitely been called back to games where I have a build or a collection where my account means something, right? Because I'm coming back to it, versus a one and done kind of story driven thing that I play for 20 to 40 hours and then I'm out, right? And so that investment in that character, doesn't really mean anything to me, and I'm not able to customize and tailor it to my individual experience. So in World of Warships, you have your collection of warships. I probably have more than my fair share, but on this one in particular, I always enjoy the fact that you can sign up for a premium account for 1 day or 3 days or 7 days or 3 months, whatever best suits the amount of time that you're going to spend in it. So it's always also kind of very interesting that when you spend time away from the game, that wargaming.net throws things at you for free in an effort to have you come back. And so when you come back, there's always like tons of coins and XP and doubloons and things of that nature for you to, spend on things around the store. So the last 3 times, I have been spending time in my Japanese tech tree, the German tech tree, and the Italian tech tree. So I kind of, it's kind of unfortunate. It's one of those games that, in a lot of ways, like Forza, people try and really game it. So, like with Forza, and going back even to like things like Project Gotham Racing 3, like people find like the 1 to 3 cars that are the fastest. And then they only ever drive those, even though it's a survey sim and it has like 80-something cars in it. And I just find that like an incredibly I don't know what I want to say. It's like going to a buffet where there's, prime rib, but instead you heap your plate full of the sawdust at the end of the buffet. Like I don't get it. So, it's always fun. There's always something interesting to find by going down these little rivulets of, you know, things that you've left behind. So I played like a type, even though, I'm up at like the tier 6 level, and still trying to work my way up to, the higher levels. But, I went back because I saw that there was a branch of a tech tree that I had never been down, and to get to it, I had to go back to playing this Type 2 destroyer. I don't spend a ton of time in destroyers, but like destroyers are incredibly fast, and it's an incredibly wonderful tactical experience to jump in this thing that's running around at like, 1/3 to twice the speed of most of the other capital warships in there, but be armed with torpedoes and to be able to, loop in and take down a battleship, when you know what you're doing. And so that was incredibly rewarding. By the same token, people don't spend a lot of time in the Italian ships because they don't have necessarily, at the higher levels, they're not necessarily the premium battleships, but at that mid level or just above that mid level at tier 5, tier 6, where I'm playing around at, there are some good stopping points on the tech tree where the Italian battleships and Italian cruisers are actually some of the more elegant ships to play in the game. So I've had a lot of fun playing in and around with those elements of the collection.
I don't know if I've ever asked you this before, but as far as the gameplay, is it so it's like 1-to-1 where you have direct control over all the weapons and stuff, or is it like, hey, I'm going to command you to shoot the gun or throw a torpedo out or something like that?
Yeah, no, I think kind of what you're talking about is kind of the way that I think about EVE Online, where it's like you don't necessarily have direct control of the weapons, but you tell the ship like what weapons to employ, and then it decides, how the exact mechanics of like that employment. And so no, it's you definitely have. It doesn't give you control down to like individual gun mounts, so it would be very interesting. One thing you can't do, but obviously in a real world battleship you could do is you could have the forward mounts fire at one target and the aft mounts fire at a different target. But in this, as far as I know, I mean, maybe maybe there are players more experienced who know better, but as far as I can tell, you could just target in on one target. And fire all of your gun mounts there. But you do have control of the ship. Like you don't, you can give the ship a waypoint and tell it to sail there, but most of the time you actually exercise direct speed control over the throttle and engines and the rudder. So it's not kind of like a faux RTS where you're telling the ship where to go, but you're actually most of the time you exercise direct control over it.
So you can only have one person on a ship at a time then, right? You can have like multiple people. Okay. Right. That'd be kind of cool though. If you had, yeah.
So this is a series that this is a game that you've stuck with now for over a year. I mean, has the game evolved for you in terms of, I mean, you're talking about the nuance aspects of it, which is really interesting, especially given kind of the strategy background of what you have played. Has that nuance come to fruition in terms of your understanding over time?
I would say no. And so, you mentioned that I've been playing it for a while. Yeah, I have like over 100 hours in it right now. I'm sure other people have thousands of hours. It hasn't evolved for me in that way, and that's because, and I think that's a good thing, because, as we've mentioned on this show, gamers should be careful about getting themselves overly religiously tied to any singular given title and then getting all bent out of shape when the developers change the title. So World of Warships is one game that I play amongst a small collection of games that are in that persistent progression season pass kind of mode. And so to be quite honest with World of Warships, it's even still today, most of the content that really drives like the seasonality of it is all at the upper tier that I haven't achieved yet. So there's tons of things like ranked battles that are like tier 8, or at least right now are tier 8 ships only and above, and I'm only at tier 6. So there's tons of additional content up at those upper tiers that I don't even play because I don't have access to it. I think part of my love of World of Warships is I don't need it to evolve. I'm completely happy with what it is. Evolving through the tiers gives you, one of the things now is at the lower tiers, there aren't as many players, and a lot of those players are playing co-op because they go into PvP and they just get hammered, and so the matchmaking for PvP at the lower tiers takes a long time. It often breaks my threshold for how long I'm going to wait, and so I'll bounce out. Now the time sink involved with that is, when you're in co-op, you don't need to apply camouflage and signal flags, and these are essentially buffs that you can apply to your character. And so if you fully dress a ship and then go into PvP and then sit in the queue and then decide you've had enough and you're going to back out, you have to take all that stuff off, right, before you go into co-op, because it's consumable and you'll expend an instance of it. But for the most part, I don't need it to evolve, and I don't play it so much that I'm this is they need to change this and they need to change that. So it creates a different optic and a different perspective, I think, in comparison to somebody who plays, some of these tryhards that we know play Destiny 2 and have dumped thousands of hours into the game and then get really bent out of shape because, Bungie has done, a thing here or a thing there.
Sure, because they continue to sunset weapons, let's say.
Yeah. And I don't mean you guys, right? But I mean people who, maybe arguably haven't achieved that maturity where they, know that a thing is just a game, and they, if they dislike something, they don't know how to put it down and move on to something else.
Cool. And you've played, I think you've played what, I don't know if you've ever played World of Tanks, but have played that one too?
Yeah,
and so there's the airships also, right?
Yeah, but I put the airship thing down. What I found is because I'm so persnickety about flight games, the game doesn't properly support flight control systems, and there are often frequent disconnects and glitches. And it just made me a little frustrated from a flight sim perspective, and I found it not rewarding enough. People were like, "Oh yeah, this game is tons of fun if you play with mouse and keyboard," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not playing a flight game with mouse and keyboard." That was one of my pet peeves with Battle. What was the game? I always confuse them. DBQ, Battlefront. With going into and fighting X-wing battles with mouse and keyboard on PC. But yeah, I probably play World of Warships the most. World of Tanks is a thing that I need to get back to, but I thoroughly enjoy both of those games and the progression models associated with them.
Nice. All right, up next for me, really quick. I went back to Ark Survival Evolved. Actually, my son, kind of out of the blue last weekend, he's like, "Hey, you want to play Ark?" I was like, "Sure." So we had it on the Switch, so we jumped on there. We probably played for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. Kind of built up, our little hut on the beach there when we spawned in and fended off a couple attacks here and there, but we didn't get to dive too deep into it, and we haven't had a chance to get back into it this week. The one nice thing about this, and we're playing on just PvE servers, so players technically can't attack you, not directly at least, but there's other ways around that sometimes. But the nice thing about this is that you have I believe it's a week, 7 days, that as long as you return to your the server and to your place, that your hut and stuff won't be destroyed by other people. Now after a week they can knock it down, say someone's trying to build a base or something around that same area, they can knock it down if we haven't been there in a week. But we have a week that we can just you can just pop in the game for a couple seconds and pop back out, and it resets the timer, so that's kind of nice. So I'll have to try to do that sometime within the next couple days, just so we don't get our stuff destroyed. Now, since it's a live server, these are always on, dinosaurs can still destroy your things, and that's kind of one of the ways that the griefers will do. They'll have a dinosaur attack them, usually something larger like a T-Rex or even one of the herbivores. As long as if you hit it, it'll start to come after you. So all you have to do is run around hut, and then the dinosaur's trying to get to you, but it's hitting the hut, so it'll knock your hut down or your building or whatever you happen to have standing. So that's one of the ways that you can kind of break things still, even in PvE. So it kind of stinks, but I think usually people are pretty cool about those type of things. So hopefully it'll still be standing the next time we get in there. Yeah, other than that, like I said, we haven't had a chance to play too much after that. I guess, Glees, another PC game that you got going here?
Yeah, and I'm going to actually swap this one for a discussion of Red Dead Redemption 2. So,
Yep.
so I've been I went back to the PC to revisit Red Dead Redemption 2. As you, I think, all remember, I made an effort to play this game on Xbox when it came out in 2018. I was not enamored.
Oh, we remember. Yeah. You and your love of opening cupboards and
right, and fixing wagon wheels. It's an interesting thing, and I'm going to have to sit and stew with it, as I, clamber on board these things and clamber off throughout the year. And, one of the questions is, it's the same thing as, when I've gone back to try and pound through The Last of Us Part 2, when I'm playing these things at first, I'm obviously, frustrated when it comes to aspects that I feel like are wasting my time. And then I come back to them, and in the second or third iteration, definitely by the third iteration, I'm more forgiving. And so does that mean that I was, not tolerant enough the first time through, or does that mean I'm being too tolerant or too soft, the third time around? And so it's a little difficult to try and maintain that, I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 again. I'm experiencing some of these things that I know they're coming, so I'm able to kind of hunker down and insulate myself against the, the stupidity of spamming the A button to pick up a wagon wheel, roll the wagon wheel 3 feet, bang the wagon wheel onto the side of the wagon, in the execution of an action that, as far as I can tell so far, isn't repeatable. I won't need to do again. There's no master wagon wheel repairman skill tree branch. So it seems like a completely superfluous, useless activity to me. It occupies a chunk of time, like 3 minutes, or whatever. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't seem like a lot for a game that you're going to spend 40 hours in, but, there's things like this peppered all throughout the game. And so, I know that's coming, and so it doesn't bug me as much. Does that mean it's really a better game than I gave it a chance to be the first time around? Today, I'm inclined to say no. That just means that it's a known evil, and I know those things are coming. But I'll just, be continuously kind of gut checking myself about things like that throughout the year. On PC, the game is gorgeous. That's, one of the things, if that's an improvement. I mentioned this on the other podcast. There are some problems with, there's an in-game benchmark utility that definitely bamboozles you. So I've been playing this on a box with an AMD Ryzen 7 3800X and a GeForce RTX 2070. And the in-game benchmark was telling me that I was getting 30 frames per second at best. I allowed myself to be fooled by that, for several hours into the wee hours of the morning trying to fix it. And then, like, a few days later, I went back to it and I used the Steam overlay frame counter. And as I should have known, it's reporting that I'm getting anywhere from 57 to 75 frames per second. And could probably be getting more, but I'm on a 75 hertz monitor, right? So, frame rate is capped at 75 essentially. So, but yeah, the game looks amazing. I get above 60 frames per second even when I'm looking at a wide open vista with tons of vegetation and stuff on it. So the game performs amazingly well. So that helps. Gunplay is good. I've already played enough into the game where I have 4 or 5 different firearms, and so those are neat to kind of mix and match and swap around. You guys know I love the inventory management meta, so you get a little bit of that as you get on and off your horse, and you make a decision on, before you leave camp, you make a decision on what weapons are on the horse, and then when you get on and off the horse, you make a decision on what weapons you're carrying with you, for any given encounter. So I enjoy that kind of, combined arms strategy to the game.
So is that the progression piece that has kept you hooked, right? Before you referenced, and we talked about this a little bit offline, but you referenced the progression hook that you're kind of leaning into in terms of games. Where does Red Dead grab you in that? Because to me, it feels like it's in that GTA motto of it doesn't give me the skill tree unlock aspect.
No, you're absolutely right, and I've been struggling with that, so I've been trying to figure out where the right balance is, and maybe this is a skip ahead to our other section. If we get time to get to it tonight, it's as I'm settling on that, it starts to get in this vein of like, if left to my own devices, that's all I would play, and that becomes limiting and it becomes concerning, and I've definitely struggled with, what happens if that's all that I have to talk about on the podcast, and are we doing this thing that we do on the back half of our lives, and, what's our responsibility to that, and yada, 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 and, would that really be that bad, and so forth, and at the end of the day, where I've kind of settled on is, I'm like, no, I mean, I still need to play, The Last of Us Part 2 and the Red Dead Redemptions, and, the Saints Row, if we ever, whatever the critically acclaimed games are for the year. I don't know if I'm going to be playing as many, but I'm kind of settling down into this thing where I try and do a little back and forth. So I play Call of Duty, and then I play Red Dead Redemption 2. And then I play, War of Warships, and then I'm going to play, Total War. So, it's a mixture of things, that I'm going to try and... I'm just going to try and be a little more deliberate and a little more managed about it. By the same token, that progression model isn't the only thing. When we talk about something like Total War or Civ, there are some games that aren't necessarily a persistent progression model, where I have a character or a build that I can come back to in a year and there's value, but there's games that I just, need to, in quietude, spend, 40 hours with, right, to play a scenario, right, and that needs some dedicated time to it where I'm not, jumping off to go play Assassin's Creed, right, so I'm just trying to figure out kind of how those things slot from a time management perspective, but Red Dead Redemption as a critically acclaimed title is something that I still want to spend some time with. I guess one of the ways that I come to terms with it, too, is that knowing that what I want to play is, let's just say, Call of Duty and Destiny 2, right, I don't feel wrapped around the axle about completing Red Dead Redemption 2, right? I'm going to spend some time with Red Dead Redemption 2, enough to evaluate it and know how I feel about it, but, if I get to Chapter 2, and that's all that there is, then I'm okay with that.
That sounds logical enough to me. That's great. Cool. I was just interested in... I think it makes a good point, right? I mean, I certainly do that. I try things on because of this podcast that I wouldn't normally, or I carve out enough time to give myself time to get outside of my box sometimes as well.
Speaking of which, I'm wondering why you decided to play this next game on your list, Mr. DBQ Hands. We're going for a little 80s nostalgia.
Okay. Yes, completely 80s nostalgia. But first, I want to take you back, not quite that far. I want to take you back to, let's say, the year 2003, 2004. You're grocery shopping. You come into the checkout line. You magazine racks there right next to the candy bars and gum. You see People Magazine, see the National Enquirer, and then you see around the side is a rack of bargain bin PlayStation 2 games, right? That kind of shovelware, but maybe grabbing an IP that people would know. Okay, now that I've set the stage, that is G.I. Joe Operation Blackout. So it's a third-person action game. It feels kind of like an early 360 game. It's a small and relatively new or unproven development team. It is created by Iguanabee, which is out of Chile. They've done a few small games, but nothing really at this scale or in this vein. It's published by Game Mill, which has done some great things like Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2, or so I mean it gets you in the new Cobra Kai game. So you kind of know with what you're dealing with. I will say I was interested. This game came out in the fall. It got terrible reviews. It's very limited, but I am a G.I. Joe fan, and the art style kind of goes back and really invokes kind of the classics 80s cartoon. And so I was just waiting for a sale on it, and I picked it up for $13, and that's about right. I've had some fun with it. I've been enjoying it. It's not actually bad. It just is from a bygone era. It is not incredibly ambitious, but I think it probably is actually ambitious now that I've kind of dug around about the development team. Like Iguanabee has done mobile games, and they've done some other pieces, and now they're building 3D environments of the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, the Flag, and different, so they, there's not a lot of verticality to it. It is, there are some pretty straightforward paths. There's a lot of geometry that's built in that is just there to give you some things to look at. You can't necessarily crawl underneath jet, one of the fighter jets from G.I. Joe, even though there's this giant space underneath it. That's not the way the engine is recognizing that. It is not it is a block.
So does it feature Roadblock or Rock and Roll as the light machine gunner?
Oh, I think it's Roadblock. Yes. Okay, so you get I'm trying to remember who you all get here, but you get, I think Flint's in it. You're gonna get
I saw him.
Scarlet, Lady J, of course, Snake Eyes and Shadowstorm. But then you also get, maybe you're not always playing as them, but it ends up with, you get some narrative around some smaller characters, like the guy with the round helmet that drove the Jeep in one of the early toys, right? So there are some visual cues here. Shipwrecks in there, so it does a lot with a little, and it's fun. It is also hilarious in the G.I. Joe type of way of the guns have no weight to them, and they feel you're shooting laser blasts like in traditional G.I. Joe 1980s fashion. So it does kind of fit that same kind of aesthetic. It has, the other fun part of it is that it has local co-op, up to, I think, up to 4 players. Only 2 players I've played with. So again, not a really complicated game. Definitely not worth. I did at $40. It's down around $20 at this point. If you have some G.I. Joe nostalgia, it's not bad. I mean, it's one of those where, like, as a kid, it would have been a fun rental for a weekend. And so I'm okay giving it my $13 because it's kind of fun. I want to see where the story goes. It also, there's no animated cutscenes. They're all like comic cutouts and static images. So this is a very, I'd be very curious to see what budget this was created under, because it really is a limited tool set that they were working from.
So I think you can watch the original G.I. Joe cartoon on the Hasbro YouTube channel for free. So litmus test question here is, do you consider your time to have been optimized playing this game, or do you think you would have, would you trade your time spent on this game for that same time back watching the cartoon on the Hasbro YouTube channel?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say that this is the game at the arcade that you throw a couple quarters in, play a little bit, like, yeah, okay, and the next time I come back to the mall, I'll play it a little bit more. You know, it works in small doses. So it is a nice complement to the cartoon because now you get to run around as those characters.
So kind of like a Dragon's Lair kind of experience.
Sure.
Okay. Gotcha.
No, I wouldn't even. There's interaction here. It's not just randomness and button timing. But it is also. I will also say that it's not great. I mean, the quote unquote boss battle of the first level is you are either Storm Shadow or Cobra Commander, and you fight Duke in a couple different waves, and it is. You're on a relatively flat surface. You have not a whole lot of real cover, and so you're basically kind of circle strafing around each other, trying to run away until your shield recharges, and then you can kind of come back. So it is, yeah, it's not great, but I would say if I had the choice of spending my $13 on this or G.I. Joe Renegades.
Or watching the two movies. That's what I was going to say. Probably definitely better time spent playing this game than watching.
In the two movies?
Yeah, the two movies, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, if I really had to choose my G.I. Joe time, I would take the G.I. Joe Renegades short series, which was like 17 episodes on Cartoon Network or Hasbro. Netflix had it for a while. Tells a complete story. And there was a hour-long G.I. Joe movie in the mid-2000s, again, that actually plays on nostalgia, but again tells a good narrative. So if you're looking for G.I. Joe, entertainment, look for some modern animation of it, and that's probably where I would encourage people to go.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So I was saying definitely probably better time spent playing this game than watching either of the two live action movies with Channing Tatum and various other members.
Rock.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I mean, as somebody who has watched both of those, yes, I would say that at least in part this is fun, like the cartoon is as an adult. Like I'm playing it, but I'm also laughing at how, like, I'm having fun, but I'm also laughing at how kind of corny some of it is, and how broken some of it is. Like, yes. So it's a Mystery Science Theater game in the making as well.
I was going to say too, I think they had a comic series. I don't know if it's still going on. That was always
the comic
highly
series,
regarded.
Mm-hmm. And it is.
Yeah.
And Larry Hama is back writing for it. I mean, they've spun that out. IDW does great work with the comic series.
IDW,
so, yes,
I couldn't remember that.
I thought of that as well. Once I stopped, I was like, oh, probably the comic is your most bang for your buck. But yes, in terms of visual entertainment.
Maybe I'll try it out if it comes to Game Pass. All right, real quick, because I want to get to, speaking of Game Pass, I want to get to our next segment here. Monster Hunter Rise demo. I tried that out like 2 minutes, 5 minutes maybe at the most. I couldn't figure out where to change the stupid inverted controls because I cannot play, especially a game like that, third person. I could not figure out where to change to invert the controls. So I only played like I said, like 5 minutes maybe. It seemed pretty cool. In some of the other forums I looked at, in some of the Discord servers I was on, they said that you can change it, but I couldn't figure it out for the life of me where to do it. So I'll have to try to go back and figure that out. So let's go to the future here of 2021 real quick before we get to the PickZ PlayZ. Gentlemen, what are you going to do this coming year? Is there anything that you're looking out to play? I mean, I know there hasn't been a lot of announcements, but there's also been a lot of delays. So let's start with that real quick. Is there any games that are you looking forward to in the coming year here? DB, let's start with you.
So yes, I would say so. Two of the indie games that I'm looking forward to are Echo Generation, which is going to be coming to Game Pass, and also Kaz, Kaze, I think.
That one.
It is it's Donkey Kong Country, more or less. I played a demo of it last year. Really loved it. It's kind of 16-bit pixel graphics. So those are my two indie games that I'm really looking forward to. Both are coming this spring. In terms of AAA games, I would say Ratchet and Clank maybe might give me enough reason come this holiday season to think about a PlayStation 5, but really probably the one that I'm most excited, given my both comic book love and my love of skill trees and progression systems, is the Gotham game. What is it? Gotham Knights, the one with all the sidekicks. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that looks pretty good. Yeah. So along the lines now that you mentioned the PS5, is there any new console in the future that you're probably going to maybe get? Or kind of on the edge there still?
Yeah, I would say I'm still on the edge. Like I could easily see myself picking one up because it's new and shiny. I could also see myself holding off on it. I'm curious to see if Nintendo does announce anything. Realistically, I'm pretty committed to waiting to a PlayStation redesign before I pick up a PlayStation 5. Just by the sheer nature of its design. I was going to use other words, but I'll just stick with design. And your success in picking up a Series X has also given me has given me even more temptation. So no, nothing immediate. I will continue to dabble and play around with things.
And we'll get to the second part here in a second, but I guess, please, any games you're looking forward to here in the future?
I would say I'm going to keep my eye on Far Cry 6 just to see how it pans out. I really haven't. I mean, I haven't dug deep, but I don't know that we know anything about that game other than the dude from The Mandalorian and
Breaking Bad,
School Days, right, or older White Men Can't Jump, or whatever old movies the guy has been in. I don't know that we know anything about that game and the gameplay other than that. Of course, I'm hoping for, for all the people who have, indicated disappointment with Far Cry 5. It was absolutely one of my favorite games ever, and the closest thing to, that skill tree progression model kind of thing with all the different weapons and vehicles and enhancements and upgrades and stuff you can get. Without being a totally online game. So I'm hoping for more of that in just a different setting, with a different, just kind of very large, open world map, just in terms of you can pick and choose how you want to progress through the missions. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that. And of course now, right, wrong, fortunate or unfortunate, having become more deeply invested in, the Call of Duty franchise again, I guess I'm going to start keeping my eye on what the next thing is, whereas typically I've never followed, I've just been like, when it drops, I've been like, oh, okay, I'll pay attention to it now and see if I'm interested or not. Now it's like, I guess I'll be part of the hype cycle of, what the build-up is and what's coming next. Because, of course, we're in this weird out-of-cycle, point now, and now I don't know what Activision does next, right? Does Sledgehammer come up to bat again? Has their beef been settled? Or is Infinity Ward back in the loop? And, you can exercise Treyarch back to fill that gap. But, is Infinity Ward going to be up for that? Are they going to kind of have seen the whole Cyberpunk debacle and been like, yeah, we're not doing that? So we'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Interesting, because I mean that's. Sorry, just one really quick. I was gonna say that's basically what they were doing before, was like they'd only get like a year, that was back on the 360 and then the Xbox One and PC and PS4. They kind of started at least a 2 or 3 year cycle, and I'm pretty sure they don't want to start doing that with the new generation of hardware.
They've got ostensibly, I'm just a bigger game to pull together now. Especially if you talk about putting a single player campaign in it, and then you've got to integrate to some level with Warzone. And I'm not even really clear. Do we know who's in charge of Warzone? Who's Is that Infinity Ward a separate dev team at Infinity Ward, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure if they're still doing it or
Yeah,
if,
I think it's well.
'cause
The engine definitely hasn't changed. It's still the thing that came out
yeah,
with Modern Warfare. So I think that's an additional dev team, or some type of workforce at Infinity Ward. Um, so
yeah,
so
sub team.
you're going to have to iterate on that thing next year, because right now it feels and looks noticeably clunky and drab next to Cold War. And so if it's going to be the thing that's going to be the thing that's consistent and gets carried along from year to year to year to year, it's gotta swap its look to be something. I hate to say more modern, since it's only been 1 year since it's come out, but so that's a thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. But yeah, those are probably the two games that I'll probably pay the most attention to for right now.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that, like how, because obviously, I mean, basically they just kind of shoehorned in Cold War's weapons into the war zone right now, and I still haven't, other than that first game, I still haven't gone back to Warzone to play anything. So I don't know if there's anything else that's really different in there. So I don't know if they've added more, because they kind of have like the I don't want to say score streaks and stuff, but they kind of threw that equipment into the game, into Warzone too, that where you can kind of find it or buy it, around the map. So I don't know if they did any more for Cold War or not.
Well, they're modifying it separately, right? So two of the more powerful weapons in Cold War, they've nerfed in Warzone because they were overpowered, but they didn't touch them in Cold War because completely different engine and code base. So it's just an interesting thing to see how they progress this forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Treyarch evolves it, or I should say that whatever that team is that's doing it right now. As for me, I mean, other than like Halo, there's really nothing else that I've seen. And I was kind of looking through the list too before we started, and a little bit yesterday. There's nothing really, and I'm sure there's going to be more announcements and stuff, but there's nothing really right now that interests me. I mean, I have plenty of games to play from even just this past year and actually a few months. So for right now, at least Halo Infinite's probably the biggest one. Like DB said, we're not really sure what Nintendo has coming up other than like a few games here and there. We got the new Mario 3D Land World that's coming out.
World,
soon.
yep,
World.
the re-release of the Wii U game. Yep.
Yeah, with the extra Bowser story on there, so that's coming out. But I mean, that was a fine game. I'm sure I'll probably pick it up at some point, but not right away. So, so then let's go into any kind of philosophies or resolutions for the coming year. I think Cleese, you can, and DB kind of pointed to you earlier about, and you had mentioned it, how your thinking is for the coming year as far as gaming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to add to that. I'm definitely more interested in hearing kind of what your guys' thoughts are on how you plan on approaching 2021.
DB, anything different from the past years? You still got spreadsheets going there? I know that was a big thing.
Yeah, no, I've turned the page, created a new tab in my spending for 2021. I already have hit my close to my $100 a month limit, but
you've been pretty much a pretty varied gamer. Like, I think since we've been doing this podcast, like there's nothing specific that you kind of hone in on or anything like that. So are you going to continue that trend too?
Yeah, I mean, I think my natural inclination is the progression model, right? Like, Destiny is always going to call to me. I like things where the numbers go up. That's good. But at the same time, I enjoy the narrative aspect of things. I appreciate the artistic pieces. I think one of the things that some of the games I picked up over the holiday break are things that I want to kind of check off and play a little bit of. Most of them are indie stuff and not a lot of big name stuff. I think it is very possible that, given what I just said about systems, I may not be leaning into the AAA stuff this year, because AAA games on the old systems are not going to be as optimized. It's not going to be as great of an experience. Probably pick up some on PC in order to get get a pretty decent version of them. But that may also mean that I am leading and exploring a little bit more in the indie world than I might have before.
What are you going to do about the show?
Oh, my hope is that I'm a day one purchaser of the show for Xbox. That's my hope. I don't think it's going to happen because I bet whatever plans I had really got pushed back because of the pandemic. But this was the year when their contract, that they were going to go multi-platform. It's also very possible that going multi-platform for them may be new generation, that they may not convert it back to the older platform as well. So if that's the case, I'm going to sit on my hands on the show. And that is okay. But I would love to, I'd love to see what the show looks like on another platform and purchase it specifically to give them, to put my money where I want to see future investments.
Nice. Actually, that was this year, huh? I thought it was another year out for some reason. Maybe I was thinking of something else. Maybe I was thinking of the NFL. Because isn't the NFL gonna kind of split off
that
eventually
2K
too?
has a non realistic mode or whatever they're non-simulation sport football that they have licensed. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then as for me, and I had mentioned this in our chats the last few weeks and stuff. And speaking of spending, I am going to totally rely on Xbox Game Pass this coming year, at least until Call of Duty comes out, because there's no Activision yet.
Totally rely? I mean,
yes, totally rely. I'm gonna just stick to Game Pass, like I said once again, until Call of Duty comes out, because then I have to buy that one. Yeah, I'm gonna whatever comes out. I'm just gonna, like I said, I've already downloaded a bunch of stuff for the the Series X, and I'm just gonna continue with that on the Xbox side now. Switch.
Okay, I was just gonna say I want to check the fine print here. Like it is.
That was just for the Xbox
gaming options. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's not get crazy. I'm not that. I'm not gonna be totally not spending any money on anything, because that's not possible for me. Anyways, yeah, but at least on the Xbox side, I'm gonna stick to Game Pass. I mean, like I said, once again, we know Halo Infinite's coming out, and that's about it as far as first party stuff. Probably. Well, I don't know if they gave. I don't know if they ever gave a date for because isn't there a new Ori that was supposed to come out too, or maybe it was like a. No, maybe I was thinking of something else. Okay, I thought there was a new Ori that was supposed to come out.
I don't think so. I mean, Will-O-Wisp was just last year, so.
Oh, okay, maybe that's. I was thinking there was something else coming out for that for some reason. But yeah, I'm sure they'll have other stuff coming out. But yeah, I'm just gonna stick to that for the coming year and just play off that. I mean, I dabbled a good bit in it last year. More so after after COVID hit, but even I kind of fell off a little bit near the end of the summer, and I was just playing like random stuff. So I want to kind of stick to it, and I know there's a bunch of games like indie title games, kind of like you said, that'll come out, and I'll definitely check out eventually. So that's my gaming resolution / philosophy for this coming year.
I thought about that as well, right? I mean, that there is enough value there and enough going on that you could keep yourself busy. You could fill your weeks just exploring Game Pass, that's for sure.
Yeah, especially now they have EA. They got the EA Access Play. I don't even know what it's called now anymore. That they added, and supposedly big rumor that Ubisoft's supposed to jump on there too at some point, maybe. So hopefully, I mean, if that gets on there, I mean that's another bunch of games that I'll be able to explore. At least the older ones, like EA, you can't even you can't get stuff day and date, but there's just older titles on there. But still, there's a lot on there. That I started Jedi Fallen Order once that came on there, so I definitely want to check that out. And I believe they just announced a Series X upgrade that I think already came out actually for Jedi Fallen Order, so I'll have to jump on that.
So what are you gonna do if Mass Effect does not go to EA Play?
Is that for me? Because I was never really,
okay,
I was never really a Mass Effect guy. No,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
I never really. I mean, I might start playing it at that point, but yeah, I was never a Mass Effect guy, so I mean that doesn't make any difference for me.
Gotcha.
It'd be a good idea though. But I think there's supposed to be a remaster, right, coming out. So.
Well, that's what I was saying.
No.
Yeah, but I was asking. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
no,
James.
I mean that's coming out this spring. It's a March. It's a quarter four before the end of the fiscal year type of release.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were those other ever backwards compatible that you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have
Oh,
Mass
were they?
Effect 2 installed right now. Yeah, they are backwards
Oh, okay.
compatible.
Yeah, so I was
Alright,
just
that's
thinking,
interesting.
I know you're a big Skyrim, Oblivion guy, so I mean, those games are at least somewhat in that vector and mold, just as far as the number of sheer gameplay hours that you can put away in that world, especially if you consider it across the 3 stories of the trilogy. So I just thought that that might appeal to you. But
Yeah, I think I might have started one, or maybe even just played the demo of the first one, and I don't know. For some reason, I didn't pick up on it any more than just those few hours that I tried. So I don't know. Like I said, if it does happen to jump on EA, I can jump on in and take a look more thoroughly. So let's jump out to our PickZ PlayZ for next time, which I guess we kind of talked about a little bit, but put your finger on your most anticipated game of 2021, which we pretty much talked about. Now find the closest thing in your backlog. Come ready to discuss your experience in this Getting Ready for X by Playing Y segment by surfacing what you hope the new thing does better than the thing you played. Agasicles, you put some stuff down. So let us know what it is and what you're looking forward to.
yeah, I don't know. I just put the stuff down that is in my windshield that I plan on playing over the next couple of weeks, probably. But I'm still kind of fishing and searching for the applicability of those to what I'm looking forward to, or whether or not, or what I'm looking forward to, right? And I have Far Cry 5, but I don't intend to swerve and pull that into my upcoming playlist, just because I'm looking forward to Far Cry 6. It's in my backlog, and I'll get back to it. Whenever it's up in the rotation. And I mean, I guess probably maybe I ought to put down Call of Duty here, since I'm saying I am anticipating kind of seeing how that series progresses, and that's definitely in my playlist over across the next couple of weeks. So I probably need to remove all those and just leave it at Call of Duty for right now.
Maybe you didn't have anything you're still thinking on this one?
No, I think the indie side with K's and Donkey Kong Country. It means I'll probably play a little bit of Donkey Kong Country just to that gets a release date. I'll probably try to play that. Well, I'll play it for this. But I think I'll probably what I'm gonna do is play the Batgirl expansion DLC for Arkham Knight, which was created by the Warner Brothers Montreal studio. So this is the Batman Arkham Origins studio. This is also the studio doing Gotham Knights, and so that will be my segue into the Batman. I was going to say sidekicks, but it is the larger cast of characters. How about that?
The Batman family.
Yes, there's the right word. The Bat family. Thank you.
The Bat family. All right, and as myself, I had Descenders, Tony Hawk remaster, Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remaster, and then SSX, which is actually backwards compatible for the Xbox Series X and 1, which I'll probably play it on too. And this is going towards Riders Republic, which unfortunately, from Ubisoft, which just unfortunately got delayed until later in the year. It was supposed to come out February 25th, but
That was just
they
the
haven't
day
given.
that announced that it was delayed, right?
Yeah, I just saw that like right before he came on. So unfortunately, I'll have to wait on that one. But that's Riders Republic was like this kind of extreme sports, like biking, skiing, snowboarding, like all these wingsuits and all these other different kind of things, which is supposed to be like in this big open world. I guess I don't know if it's a big open world you can do anything, or just like the races, or this gigantic, like I think it said like 50 people are be playing at the same time. So I'll be playing these other games just to see. How that comes about in Riders Republic. So, and I guess none of these are from Ubisoft. So I think, what did they just have recently? Steep, I believe, which is kind of like their
2017, I think, was Steep.
Well, they just had Wet Trials Rising last year, right?
The Trials Rising, yeah.
See, or 2019 maybe. Hey, so I guess one of my questions is, Prime, do you know, is Riders Republic the evolution of Trials? Or do you think they're still going to be doing Trials alongside Riders Republic? Like, I don't know that there's room or space or a need to do something like Trials if you're going to go this route.
Yeah, I would think they would keep Trials going, because that's just motocross, and as far as I know, as far as I saw in the trailer at least that they showed, I don't remember seeing any kind of like motorcycle stuff. I was mostly like mountain biking, kind of, because like everybody was just going downhill, you know, and snow and deserts and, you know, all these other things. But I didn't remember seeing any motor vehicles. I think Trials will probably still go around, or at least they'll iterate on the current one that's out now. So they seem to be doing like seasonal stuff too. Kind of like most games are nowadays. So I don't think there's any kind of battle pass or anything for that, though. I think they just do seasonal stuff within the game. So yeah, but it did look. I mean, Riders Republic, that did look kind of cool from what they kind of showed. So I'd be interested. I'm really interested in that game just because I've kind of gone into the extreme sports genre as of late, as this past like 6 to 9 months. So we'll see. And then Swiss didn't have anything, so we'll have to see if he puts anything down in the coming weeks. All right, gentlemen, any last words before we head out on anything? All right, so next week, DB will host our deep dive. We're going back to our regular format for all our shows, so no surprises. Hopefully, hopefully everything goes as put in the agenda here next week. It'll be myself and Swissguard backing him up. So please tune in next week for our deep dive. This has been the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode number 175. Thank you, DB. Thank you, I guess, Cleese. We had quite the long episode today, but I think we had a lot to talk about, so it's not too bad. Please take care of each other out there, and we will see you next time.